This episode of Marijuana Today Daily is brought to you by our new sponsor, Greenworks Consults, a company run by longtime listener to the show, Jason, who's an expert when it comes to helping businesses get better at doing business. Jason and his team over at Greenworks Consults are good at helping entrepreneurs tune up and dial in their business operations through better project management, workflow mapping and design, and process standardization. They're experts in Lean and Six Sigma and can work with you to make things run more smoothly and profitably. Learn more about what Greenworks Consults is up to over at greenworksconsults.com, with works spelled W-O-R-X. That's greenworksconsults.com. Good morning, Marijuana Nation. It's Thursday, January 9th, 2019, and you're tuned in to episode 862 of Marijuana Today Daily. I'm your host, Shay Gunther, and I'll be walking you through today's marijuana news and headlines. As always, we have a full and busy day of cannabis news in our hands, so let's jump right into it. Kyle Jaeger kicks off a 3-story day in the headlines today with a pickup of New York Governor Andrew Cuomo's pledge to legalize adult use marijuana during his State of the State address, just given yesterday. There was a lot of effort put out in New York State last year to try to pass legal adult use legislation, but the drive was ultimately not able to get through state lawmakers. During yesterday's State of the State address, Governor Cuomo not only said that he would make 2020 the year that New York State legalized adult use, but that he would also push for the formation of a new program to be called the, quote, Global Cannabis Center for Science, Research, and Education, unquote, which would be rolled into the New York State University system. You can pop over to Kyle's piece for more on this and to see a video of Cuomo's comments. As always, we have all the news we cover linked to on our website at mjtodaydaily.com. Kyle's second headline on the day is also our second overall story, as this time we jump to Mississippi, where a ballot measure to legalize medical marijuana has officially qualified for a vote in November. The organization Mississippians for Compassionate Care collected more than 214,000 signatures for the initiative, well over the 86,185 needed. If approved by voters in the fall, the state would allow people with one of 22 qualifying conditions to use and possess up to 2.5 ounces of cannabis every 2 weeks. There's still some work to be done by state lawmakers on the initiative between now and when it will go up for a vote. So if that's of interest to you, again, I'd direct you over to Kyle's full story at Marijuana Moment. Congratulations to everyone involved with this one. Our final top story today is not by Kyle Jaeger and concerns the write-down just announced yesterday by Constellation Brands of the value in their holdings of Canopy Growth by $534 million. Constellation Brands, which holds a wide portfolio of consumer brands, including Corona Beer, made big marijuana headlines a couple of years ago when it invested just over $4 billion in marijuana giant Canopy Growth. The $4.1 billion investment has been written down in value a few times by Constellation since 2018, with the latest drop taking its book value to $2.6 billion, a 37% decline. Those are our top stories for today. It's time for Marijuana Today Daily Headlines Blitz. Before we blitz out in headlines, let's quickly thank our sponsor, Greenworks Consults, which is run by longtime listener to the show, Jason, who's an expert when it comes to helping businesses get better at doing business. As the legal marijuana business landscape gets more competitive, it's more important than ever that you tune in and dial up your business operations. Every dollar in waste from business inefficiencies is a dollar that does not end up in your bank account at the end of each month. Do your bank balance a favor and get in touch with Jason and his team over at Greenworks Consults today to see how they can help you do business better. They're pros at project management, workflow mapping and design, Lean, Six Sigma, and process standardization, all of which they will bring to bear for you right after you pop over to greenworksconsults.com to get in touch. That's greenworksconsults.com, with works spelled W-O-R-X. Big thanks to everyone over at Greenworks Consults for the support that helps us keep our news lights on. All right, time for the Blitz. CBC News takes an insightful look at a new policy in Quebec, Canada that restricts the purchase of legal marijuana to people 21 years of age and up, with the change taking place as of January 1st from the previous age limit of 18. 18. While down here in the US, legal cannabis laws all start off at the age of 21, Canadians are a bit more enlightened with their public policy and afford 18-year-olds the right to consume adult substances, given that they can join the army and fight very adult wars. But Quebec threw off that sensible approach last year and is now implementing a shift to 21. As CBC News is reporting, most reasoned thinkers on the matter say that the new policy will just drive underage adult consumers to the illicit market. A good one to add to your list to read today. Bouncing up to my corner of the country here in Maine, we have a good story involving a posthumous pardon just granted by Maine Governor Janet Mills of civil rights attorney Don Gellers, who represented Maine's Passamaquoddy tribe in the 1960s and who was set up by state authorities and state police in a drug sting involving marijuana in 1968, for which he was sentenced to 2 years in prison, time he never actually had to serve, though he was ultimately driven out of the legal practice. Mr. Gellers died in 2014 after a well-lived life. He moved to Israel after being set up by the state of Maine and then later lived in New York City. Passamaquoddy Vice Chief Daryl Newell from Indian Township expressed his gratitude for Gellers' work, saying, quote, "Our people, even today, are respectful of him being an advocate for Native folks and oppression of Native folks and the injustices of Native folks. So he was a warrior for the Passamaquoddy tribe." Unquote. KushCo Holdings just released their financial numbers for the third fiscal quarter ending November 30th, with net revenue up 38% from the previous year to $35 million. KushCo saw a net loss on the quarter of $9.2 million and reports having just under $15 million cash on hand, well up from the $3.9 million it had as of August 31st. Pop over to New Cannabis Ventures for more here if you want. Multi-state cannabis operator Harvest Health just announced that it has filed a lawsuit against the company Falcon International, which it began the process of acquiring just last year. The lawsuit was filed in federal court in Arizona and seeks the dissolution of the deal, with Harvest Health accusing Falcon of illegally moving marijuana products over state lines and of misrepresenting certain company metrics. Harvest also wants $47.8 million in cash that it's laid out in the process back. This is an interesting one to follow. In a move that should probably surprise no one, Alabama's Attorney General thinks medical marijuana is bad and wrote a letter to state lawmakers saying so. Alabama Attorney General Steve Marshall is worried because federal law still considers medical marijuana illegal and thinks that medical marijuana is bad as opioids in terms of addiction and effects. Both of those points are pretty ridiculous, the latter especially, so no one should care what Alabama Attorney General Steve Marshall thinks on this particular matter. With his third and final story today, Marijuana Moment's Kyle Yeager details progress seen this week on the Marijuana Opportunity, Reinvestment, and Expungement Act, or the MORE Act, which is moving its way through the U.S. House of Representatives and that would, if made into law, deschedule marijuana, expunge the criminal records of people with low-level cannabis charges, and set up a legal marijuana sales tax to fund community reinvestment projects for areas disproportionately affected by the federal war on cannabis. As Kyle has it, the MORE Act is expected to go up for discussion during a meeting of the House Energy and Commerce Subcommittee on January 15th. The MORE Act still has a few committees to get through before it can be put to a vote by the full House, so this is another story you could expect to see more of in the coming weeks and months. And finally for today, John Schroyer over Marijuana Business Daily checks back in with California-based marijuana listing site WeedMaps, which has been fighting the state of California over its policy to allow unlicensed shops and marijuana businesses to post up alongside legal and licensed businesses. We covered this storyline a bit, with WeedMaps pledging last year that it would scrub its site of illicit operators by January 1st. As John's reporting, the number of unlicensed shops on WeedMaps has dropped substantially since the turn of the new year, but there are still about 1,700 more listed companies on the site than there are licensed businesses in the entire state of California. So there's still some more work to be done there. Those are the headlines and news for the day. I'll be back with you again tomorrow morning with another information-packed episode of Marijuana Today Daily. But in the meantime, if you have any stories to share or feedback to give, zip us an email to headlines@mjtodaydaily.com. And while you're clicking around the interwebs, swing over to our website at mjtodaydaily.com to find links to all the news we cover. Thanks to our sponsor, Greenworks Consults, and to our awesome Patreon listeners for the support that makes this show possible. To join the illustrious ranks of the Patreon listeners yourself, swing over to our website at mjtodaydaily.com and click on that big blue button at the top of the page that says Become a Patron. I'm your host, Jay Gunther. Thanks for tuning in, starting your day with marijuana today.
One take, Shay. One take.